July meeting of the Pennridge, West Rockhill Board of Supervisors meeting. So will you all join me? Pledge the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, are there any comments on the current agenda and topics of tonight's meeting?
Monkey.
Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed with the agenda. We plan to have an executive session tonight after the meeting to deal with some legal issues. We had an executive session for legal and real estate following the meeting last month. Consent agenda. Gentlemen, have you had a chance to review the items of the consent agenda, and do you have any questions, any need for changes, or can I have a motion for approval as presented?
I have no changes. Make a motion to
Okay.
approve.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Confirmed reports, we have none tonight. Committee reports, Park and Rec,
Wow, that was quick.
Mr. Reese.
All right. I like that. Keep it quick.
All right. Little Free Library, just an update. Just a reminder, the Little Free Library is a great idea for the kids, but it's also available to adults. So you can bring, adults can share books and give books as well. So that's just an idea that I don't know if it was probably widespread, but it's something that we came across. We're like, oh, there's no real, adults sharing books or anything like that. So it's something that you can as well share in a Little Free Library. Reminder, movie night, August 24th, 7:30 p.m. at the park. We are narrowing it down. It looks very much like The Secret Life of Pets will be the movie of choice for that night. There's a close second, but I believe it's probably going to be The Secret Life of Pets, if I had an inkling. And that's going to be an awesome, we're going to have some popcorn and some waters for that, and hopefully for big turnout, hopefully nice weather and big turnout. Septemberfest, just a reminder, that's September 29th, last Sunday in September. I'd like to see everybody out there, and we're going to have a new facelift on Septemberfest, kind of shuffle some things up, change some new things, and bring some old things back. That's why I threw my old school Park and Rec shirt on, just because little Park and Rec, old school is never a bad thing. So I think that's all I got. Make it short and simple.
Okay, anybody have any questions today?
No, I have no questions. Make a motion to approve.
I'll second this motion.
Thank
Okay,
you.
been moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
Commission reports. Pennridge Regional Police. Welcome, Tim.
Evening, thank you very much. This is the following information list for the monthly activities for the Pennridge Regional Police Department for June of 2019. Pennridge Regional Police Department responded to 498 calls for service. Of those calls, 244 were in East Rockhill and 254 in West Rockhill. The department handled 33 traffic crashes. There were 17 crashes in East Rockhill and 16 in West Rockhill. 22 were reportable and 11 were non-reportable. In regards to the criminal activity, the Pennridge Regional Police officers responded to 2 Part 1 crimes and 35 Part 2 crimes in June, totaling 37 crimes. Obviously, the Part 1 crimes are your more serious crimes. The reported crimes in West Rockhill Township, there was a burglary, a fraud, a DUI, trespass, 3 cases of disorderly conduct, 3 cases of harassment, a terroristic threats, and 4 ordinance violations. In East Rockhill, the reported crimes for June, there was 1 assault, there was 2 fraud cases, 1 weapon possession, 2 cases of possession of marijuana, a possession of heroin, 2 cases of DUI, 2 cases of disorderly conduct, harassment, terroristic threats, public drunkenness, and 8 ordinance violations. In regards to the criminal charges that were filed for the month of June 2019, there was 1 possession disseminating child pornography, There was 1 false identification. There was 1 burglary, 1 theft case, 1 simple assault, 1 underage drinking, 1 possession of an instrument of crime, 1 possession of marijuana, 3 possession of drug paraphernalia, 1 terroristic threat, 1 public drunkenness, 5 DUIs, 4 harassments, 6 disorderly conducts, 1 criminal mischief, and 1 criminal trespass. Very, very busy month. A lot of charges filed, Joe. Other police activities, officers conducted 144 traffic enforcement details, 25 of them specifically on Old Bethlehem Pike. Officers issued 19 verbal traffic warnings, 37 citations, and 29 written warnings. They also conducted 212 business checks. That completes the report for June of 2019.
Okay, thank you. You have any questions, gentlemen?
I agree.
Oh, Tim?
Tim, can I ask you?
Sure.
Allentown Road.
Mhm.
I've had some concerns, and I talked to the chief. The chief was gonna go inspect it last week, and he was gonna call PennDOT if need be. There's a couple places where, from these heavy storms we had, and the debris being in the ditches,
Yeah.
it eroded the side of the road.
Yes.
Has there any action been taken from the police department to PennDOT?
Yes, we were actually out there that night. We contacted PennDOT. The chief was actually out there. We had a vehicle that was broken down kind of off to the side of the road. And we actually located another area where the road had eroded. It's almost right across from Homestead Campground.
Yes.
It literally, just from the water, had actually dug under the road. And we had PennDOT up there that day because they came up to Finland and Allentown to help clean it up because that was all washed out. Allentown Road is without a doubt an ongoing thing. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously.
it's not wide enough to really allow for that erosion to happen.
Correct.
Number one. Number two, was there any conversation on regarding cleaning the ditches out?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, because that's what caused that problem.
100% true. Yeah, there's no question about it.
Okay.
If I could add to that, I mentioned to Greg earlier this week that Allentown Road and County Line Road, where they meet,
Yeah.
that's a mess. The road is so bad that it looks like somebody dropped a load of stone. And
Really?
it's huge, big things like this laying out in the road. I asked Greg, I think Greg also contacted PennDOT about that.
Any action taken yet?
I don't think so. No, today was still the same way.
Well, just to give you an idea, I mean, overnight, because we're out there 24/7.
Right.
So we got called up there at like 2 o'clock in the morning for just the flooding roads. We called for PennDOT right away. But obviously, I can't force them to come out. That's up to them whether or not they do.
Yeah.
So we did. We called them to come out for the roadway, eroding,
Yep.
and to clean up Allentown and Finland. And at 0600, whenever I came in there, they still hadn't come out. So, you're talking hours.
Okay.
So it's just
So
that.
we-
But again, I mean, I do know from talking to those guys, they were everywhere that night.
It was a terrible
It was
night.
it was a terrible
It
night.
was.
Terrible.
So I'm not trying to minimize
No.
Allentown Road, but I mean, they were.
They got so much to do.
Yep.
My only concern is was it being addressed? Was there people notified?
Yes.
And we have to stay on that in order to get that, because that road, there's not enough room there for error.
Yeah, I think that they're starting to get a game plan now, I think, to do some preventative maintenance, all right? So that whenever we do run into something, maybe not necessarily to that magnitude, because that was just incredible, 7 inches of rain in a matter of an hour, but just, I mean, it's been eroding even with an inch or two rain, so.
Yep, thank you, Tim. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept Tim's report as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Joint record authority, Mr. Miller.
It's been hot. It's been really hot, and the pool's been really, really busy. So it's been quite a turnout. The weekends have, we have 80 to 100 people walking in just for a day pass. So it's been very, very busy. Since the last meeting, we did have our yard sale. We had 13 vendors, so we made a little bit of money off that. And the flow of people coming in to buy things was pretty much steady all morning. So I don't think anybody walked away not having made back their $10 or $15, whatever they spent. The other thing is our craft beer night coming up in 48 hours. We got a stack of tickets here for anybody that needs tickets. They're $5 a piece until until Friday, when they will turn into $7.50. Ticket sales are picking up a lot this week, especially with the weather. It will be at Holiday House Pool on the Friday from 8 to 10. We have a special menu coming from our snack bar. We have Proper Brewing is coming in with 5 taps of 5 different kinds of beer. They are handling all the beer. We're not handling any. They take the liability for the beer. We've got our guards set up. We're set up for extra parking if we need it. So, and the police have been notified, and I've already gotten a note back from Chief Blake on who would be on duty that night. There's still tickets left. I hope people want to come out. Thank you. And that's really all I have. We did not have a meeting because of vacations, and one lady was in an accident, so we didn't have a quorum for a meeting this month. All right.
Any questions?
Is she okay?
Yes, she has a cracked vertebrae in her neck, and she has a cracked tibia that runs down inside the tibia. So hopefully she gets her neck brace off in about a week.
Well, with that, I will make a motion to accept Jim's report as presented.
And I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, tax collector's report.
Okay, for the month of July, for annual taxes, I've collected $7,287.07. 2019 interims, $320.41, and streetlight tax, $32.37. And school tax bills did hit the mail for July the 1st. They are due a discount for 2 months, so that ends August 31st. That's all I have to report.
Okay, anybody have any questions of
Nope.
tax collector?
I'll make a motion to approve the report.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Engineer's report, Mr. Blue.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first item on the agenda is a Gavin planning module. If you recall, the Gavin subdivision, 2-lot subdivision down at Lonely, Bardsley Road and Ridge Road. Planning module was held up. You had approved the plan last year. Planning module has been held up because of a replacement system at the old farmhouse that actually isn't done yet, but the health department signed off on the planning module. So we need an approval resolution. So I need a motion to approve the resolution for planning module.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it.
Would that be 2019-11?
Correct.
And we will also need O&M agreements prepared for that project. I think I talked to Mary about this already. Because of the type of systems, they're drip irrigation systems. They're classified as alternate, and that requires an operation and maintenance agreement from the township. So the next item we have is the Durstein-Milhoffen Land Development Plan. We have representatives here tonight. Give them a chance to give you an overview.
Hi.
Anything?
I'm from Cowan Associates, Charlene Struthers. We're representing Andy Jagucci.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask Andy to come up so that he can introduce his business that operates on the site, give you a general background of what his plans are for the site, and then we can go over the land development portion itself.
Hello,
Hello.
Good evening.
my name's Andy Jagucci. I'm a mason contractor for 35 years, and I do a special kind of masonry. I restore historic brick and stone buildings. And 20 years ago, I started importing lime from France for a chemical reason, in that it can produce a mortar that's most appropriate for reproducing and replacing historic mortars for buildings built before 1900, and that's what I do. When I started doing that, I found that I was serving the industry in a bigger way than I thought I would. I ended up supplying all the mortar to restore St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan and the Rotunda Dome at University of Virginia, all the mortar and plaster. And since I don't golf, I thought I'm not going to retire. I'm just going to buy a farm and go for another 30 years. And I bought this old Durstein farm because it had antique buildings on it, and I thought that I could keep what is a cultural resource in a better state of conservation by repurposing it, breathing new life in it, to teach historic preservation and to sell my materials out of that complex. And so I looked for real estate for maybe 8 years and then finally found this place that sort of fit the bill. There's an old stone sawmill that ran for 150 years on a water wheel on the property. And there's a 95-foot long hay barn and a 9-bedroom brick Victorian home. So I had made a narrative 4 years ago to say what all my purposes were for using these different buildings and teaching classes and selling materials and so on. And the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors sort of gave me the green light and said, here's a waiver of development, and what we want you to do was, in my words, I love saying this, bring us the witch's broom. And I thought, what? That's fine. Because I had to get access off of the intersecting road called Keystone Drive, and then to do that I got to cross a waterway, which caused me to have to call the Department of Environmental Protection and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and get bog turtle studies and so many things that took 2.5 years. And I came back with the broom and said, I have it, I did it, I got it done. And they're like, you're still around, right? That's how Masons can be tenacious. We don't give up too easy. So I got all that done and seemed to have pleased the engineers with Cowan's help and the engineers for the township, so that I can pursue what was my original intent, and that is to run Limeworks US. It's I employ about 21 people, and what we do is make mortars, plasters, and paints for historic structures. So most of when we make it, we don't manufacture there, we really assemble there. So the binder comes from France. The lime is an ancient deposit, and I get it from a 165-year-old company. So there's Roman ruins all over that were built with the same exact stuff. So I bring this powder over, and then we assemble it in that. People from all over the country ship us samples of their historic mortar, and then our lab manager is a guy who has graduated from University of Pennsylvania with his master's in historic preservation. He does an analysis, and then he recreates a sample of what looks like the original, and then ships it to the architect. If the architect says that they like it, we will only blend at this facility now maybe a quart to 200 pails. If they want a tractor trailer load, like Mount Vernon or somewhere like that, we have a toll blending off-site that blends for us. They have all the raw materials, and then we put the order in through there. However, on this new development, I do have a batching plant hoped for. Batching plant would be if we wanted to bump it up from just 200 pails to a little bit bigger, maybe a tractor trailer load, then we could do that ourselves. But we assemble it, meaning we take the lime and we take aggregate sands and pigments and we blend them together and then put them in a bag or a bucket, and we then label it and sell it. So that is the thing we produce and sell. But then we have workshops. People want to know, how do I use this lime mortar? Some are novices. Some are seasoned professional masons, but have never used mortars without cement in them, and so we train them. So we have that dual purpose, and currently, there's multiple phases to what I want to do, but currently, when we have people from out of the country and out of the state come to stay with us, we put them at the Washington House, which is a nice historic, nice example of Elaine there. Really, I got to be good friends with her. She really has done that same kind of thing, making quite a deal out of the Sellersville Theater and the Washington House, and making a hotel and a restaurant. Well, we put them up there, but the intent maybe is one day, if someone's staying for our day classes, they're only a day or 2 or 3, maybe up to 2 weeks, we would just have them stay temporarily with us. So the intent is to eventually develop the property where the 9-bedroom brick Victorian would become a private guest house. And so there'll be no neon sign on 309 saying bed and breakfast here, half price on breakfast, or anything like that. It'll just be for our guests. And then, and so there'll be a little manufacturing in the guest house, and then class is being run in the mill and in the other various buildings there, and warehousing, in that I have a big pole building on the, shown on the plan, so we can make the products and store the products, and have tractor trailers come in and out, and use our new entrance, which is on Keystone Drive. It will be on Keystone Drive, and then if that floods, because it's in the floodplain, or just everything floods over there with Mill Creek, then we have an emergency exit out the exit we're using now. So that's pretty much it. Okay, it's not too much information, but.
Very nice overview.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I thought it might be interesting to you guys exactly what he does and how he does it. And as he says, we have gone through the land development before the planning commission on several occasions, and at the last meeting, they granted conditional preliminary final approval to be forwarded on to the Board of Supervisors. I do have a letter from Steve dated July 10th, which I've gone through and looked at his comments, and basically we're on a will comply on the items. There are some waivers that I would like to ask for this evening. I think we have the letters, or at least they're addressed in Steve's letter at this point, the waivers that we're requesting. So we're basically just looking for preliminary / final approval of the land development plans, conditioned upon Stephen's comments, and then also granting of the waivers.
Okay. Steve, do you have any comments you want to offer?
Well, I will ask, Shirley,
Go
if
ahead.
you could go through the stages of development.
Okay.
Because Mr. DeGrucci had such an extensive game plan for the property, he came to it, or at the Planning Commission a few months ago, he described how he'd like to break it down and build it in stages. Still approve it as one major development, but how he's gonna progress through. And the Planning Commission's interest is what improvements get built at what time.
So you go through that and take the
Right, so
planning commission.
Sherlyn has a plan she can show you, and just so everybody understands what'll be done first, what's included in that, and, you know, what will be last.
Is there a timetable, or is it just when they get to it?
I don't know what your timetable is specifically.
Well, as soon as we get the green light, whether we want to start on the first phase right away. And I guess, should I explain the first phase, or I guess Charlene?
Yeah, sure, let me do it in a second here. So I guess you have a hard schedule for the first phase, but not necessarily for the second and third phase yet.
The second one would be soon thereafter. The third one gets into where the manufacturing plant and all that. I'm not sure about that.
So it might be good if you estimate what they're going to be, so we have an understanding.
I think as we describe it,
Good question
we'll
here.
talk about that later.
Okay, thanks.
I don't remember. Steve, the zoning district? What's the current zoning district? It's on the plan, but I
In the IS district?
Unfortunately, I don't
Planned
know.
industrial.
Yeah, it's in the industrial district.
Just plain old I.
I took it out of my letter.
Yeah, it wasn't in your first letter.
Yeah, I didn't see that it was that reference.
Yeah, it's in PI.
Yeah.
This plan basically shows some coloring of the different phases. Currently, Mr. DeGrucci is operating out of a building here, and then he's got a temporary office trailer, and then also this building. Phase one is going to be kind of this, call it an off-yellow green area, which basically includes a new building addition adjacent to here, some parking to support it, the sewer line to service it, public sewer, and the detention basin in this area. This detention basin will be constructed in part of phase one, and it'll be constructed to the size for the entire development. In addition to that, the road improvements that we have along Keystone Drive, which is a minor widening and overlaying of the road. Phase number 2 is the blue, which includes a pole building here. The majority of the rest of the parking, the entranceway off of Keystone, and just some miscellaneous driveway work and so on. Phase number 3 would be another building back in here with the driveways and so on around it, some silos in this area, and then reworking some of the existing buildings, including the mill and the house here, to support his training areas and so on. That's generally the phasing that he's anticipating at this time. It's going to, how long it takes, depends on how things operate, okay? One of the questions that Steve had was concerning the detention basin, and as I said, the detention basin will be built completely during the first phase. It's also established as a sediment basin due to the erosion control permitting and NPDES permitting. So that will remain as a sediment basin until such time that we don't have any earth disturbance contributing to it, unless I can convince the Conservation District or something different, okay? Which I was unable to do so far, but we tried, okay? So in essence, our public sewer is going to be in during phase 1, our storm sewer controls are going to be in during phase 1. So the rest of the work will be land development, but mostly building and then parking and so on associated with it. None of the public improvements that go along with it.
If I could interrupt you there, to get back to the timing issue, there was a long discussion at the Planning Commission as to the access off of Keystone Drive. And, you know, there's some back and forth with the applicant. And I think the applicant argued and the Planning Commission agreed, phase 1 is really just rearranging what Mr. DeGrucci already has on the property. He's getting rid of his temporary trailer and building a new office for himself. So there's really no new traffic, no increase in activity on the property. And that's one of the reasons that the access to phase 2 was, or the access to Keystone was deferred to the second stage. Because that's when the new whole building will be built and his business could, you know, start taking in more product, more manufacturing, more customer-based things. The Planning Commission, though, still had a concern that that didn't take forever, and part of their recommendation was that that access to Keystone Drive would be built within 3 years of the,
Or what?
or there'd be no additional
Work permitted.
permits on the property, so he can't access the rest of the buildings. So that was the trigger that the Planning Commission felt was, you know, it's either he's going to roll right into phase 2 and have to build that access to get access to the new buildings, or he's going to build it anyway after a 3-year period, and it'll be all escrowed in the beginning of the project, since it's one large project. So that's the timing issue that the Planning Commission recommended, because they didn't want that access to Keystone to just languish for an extended period of time.
Steve, will the existing exit will that continue to exist?
Yes, it is not being removed.
For
I think we have
emergency
it-
purposes, in the
yeah,
event that the primary entrance around the creek does flood. So it's just an emergency. It will be gated, per se, so that it's not public access unless there's, you know, they can't get public access. So it will be, in essence, closed off, but not physically abandoned. It's going to be there for emergency purposes only, and for emergency services if in fact we want to approach from both directions.
So I'm sure you know that exit on that 152 is very dangerous.
That's
situation.
why, basically PennDOT, when we went to PennDOT initially, that was the one thing. There's no way that we can make that meet the current criteria and so on. So that's why the entrance had to be moved to Keystone. But we're keeping it just in case for emergency purposes only.
I think that's smart.
Yeah, otherwise you're trapped in there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One of the interesting concepts that Mr. DeGrucci has planned into it is all the proposed parking, driveways, and so on are being constructed with porous concrete, not asphalt. So we will have porous concrete there, not porous pavement, but actually porous concrete there. Because of the high water table and the rock and so on in the area, we can't use it for infiltration, but we have a stone bed underneath it, and any water that doesn't infiltrate will get into the storm sewer system and go down into the basin. So we have taken some credit for the porosity of the new surfaces in the fact that there's areas, particularly in phase 3, that don't get to the detention basin. So that's kind of bypassing out of it, but we've over-designed the detention basin, assuming that the runoff from the porous concrete is impervious. So the basin is oversized, but we've taken credit from the other, for the other portions.
Gentlemen, have any questions?
I think it's a wonderful plan, and I support what's
Yeah,
going on.
I agree with you.
And I'd make a motion on us moving forward, whatever way we have to.
Well, I think, don't they want to talk about waivers?
Yes, we do it.
But, and I have a couple questions.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, it's located in the PI district, and we have a provision in our ordinance which only allows one use per lot, which means that, to make this work, there's gotta be a principal use, and then the other components, what's from,
We have a variance.
you got a variance so you can have multiple
Yes.
uses in lots, okay,
Yes.
great.
Yeah, that was part of all that. We
Yeah,
didn't
2.5
go through
years.
detail.
2.5
2.5
years.
years of preliminary back and forth. Yes, that was
We
addressed.
also,
And then,
we also got a variance for the floodplain crossing.
and that,
The disturbance within the
Formal.
floodplain.
when we talk about step 1 and step 2.
No, they don't want to formally phase it, they're looking for approval for the overall site, they're gonna construct it in stages. Because they don't want their NPDS permit, if it gets phased, it creates another issue, so all their permits are for the entire property. So the development agreement will be for the entire property.
So you're gonna post all the financial security for the improvements up front?
Most of
Most of
what
them
would
are
be
being done
township
in part
improvements
one.
are up front. The basin, the road work, their early,
Just trying to make it easier.
Right, all the public improvements, being the detention
So-
basin, the erosion control and so on, are going to all be installed as part of phase 1. And then the erosion control of some of it deteriorates before it gets into phase 2 and so on, we'll have to replace it. But the detention basin being the primary, shall I say, the primary public improvement on the site is all going to be constructed as part of phase 1.
So the road work that you can postpone for 3 years, that's still gonna be escrowed up front?
yes. Well, it's internal driveway, so there would be a limit to what we escrow on it anyway. We don't always escrow for full parking, private parking lots, so.
I would anticipate the bridge
The
crossing.
bridge
the
crossing,
bridge
the floodplain
itself.
crossing would be escrowed.
Thanks.
That's kind of why I asked, is there a timeline for each of these phases? So, God forbid, but if you get to 1.5 phases and things are abandoned, where are we then? The property has been modified partially, and does that affect the property?
I think we're covered in that scenario. I think we want to look at this as, the word phasing in stages
Yeah.
is what's kind of goofing
Right,
everything
it's
up here.
messing us up.
It's sort of if we just had a sequence of construction and what was going to be first, second, and third, that's what's shown in the different colors there. The fact that we have it all of the important township improvements escrowed all up front, we won't have
All 3 phases.
for all 3 phases. The second and third phases have very little township improvements, it's mostly their private buildings. So we could end up with a site, if for whatever reason Mr. Cabrucci abandons the project, with only 1 building on it, but it'll have the full detention basin, it'll have the sewer connections, it'll have all the road work done. It just won't have all the buildings on it. So I don't see
Okay, I
that
just
there's
to make sure
exposure from the township
we'll
side.
understand that, what the neighbors.
Yeah, the latter stages are just the build out of his of each building or rehabbing of, say, the mill building. If that doesn't happen, it doesn't impact our interests, I don't think.
You don't have any questions?
Well, I do want to, we have to discuss the waiver thing.
Yeah, I don't have a waiver letter, sure. Do you have a waiver letter,
Doesn't,
Steve?
it doesn't
Yeah,
have a
there was
paragraph on it.
February 5th, was that the last one?
It was dated February 5th, but revised up to June 13th. There's 2 revision dates on it.
I know, I'll need a copy of the draft.
We can make a couple copies now, do you have that?
I just don't, that doesn't have a, it's not signed.
And there's emergency service people.
I think that's an emergency notice.
None of your shot your sign away. Mine didn't go off.
Mine's on silent, so it's in.
I sound like.
Yeah.
No, it's supposed to have a little.
I'm not sure, the ones that read it, was it severe thunderstorm?
We all have it.
Flash flood warning.
Flash flood, okay.
I don't have any, yeah, thank you for making copies. I never got that.
That's fine, I apologize for that.
I'll wait until it comes back,
Yeah,
and we
she's-
can go in order.
Still have it in
I
a
could jump around, but that would only confuse Mary eventually. Try and figure
Anything
it out.
that uses Mary.
Are there any other questions while we're waiting?
I have no other question.
I'll just give you an update. I have been communicating with Mark Fournier, Telford Borough Authority. They have approved the design of the sanitary sewer and so on. Now they're just making sure that my flow numbers are correct, and they're going to process the planning module exemption postcard through PWTA, Telford Borough Authority, and they will be giving it to Greg for his signature, so I'm sure that it's going to come back to you for the planning module, postcard signature, and so on. But that's well on its way. The NPS, the NPDS permit paperwork has been into the Conservation District for a while. We have, it is administratively complete, it's under technical review, they've asked for a few things, so that's well on its way also.
May I ask, you said sanitary, is it public water too?
No,
No.
we're
it's served
using
with
the
wells.
existing wells.
Okay.
There is public water along Keystone Drive, but it's a desire of Mr. DeGrucci to use the
Understood.
private wells at this point. We always have the option, if for some reason the wells don't support everything that he needs to do, we can always tie it in the public. But at this point, in talking, I even talked to Mark Fournier about possibly running a line up for fire service and stuff, and he said it really wouldn't be worth it because it would be a dead-end line and would service only one property, so they really aren't looking that favorably upon taking on, another line coming up between the private property for a hydrant.
Okay.
But I did talk to him as a result of one of your comments.
I did also,
Okay, and he said the same to you, in essence?
in essence.
Yeah. Okay, the waivers that were requested was, section 406 was from a traffic impact study. We did a partial traffic impact study as directed and negotiated, I guess, through the township, which, reviewed the traffic at the intersection of Keystone and
Right, it's
152.
primarily the intersection, because we have had an accident history to some degree at that intersection. So they did estimate the new trips from the site, and found that the intersection does meet all kind of standard site distance and other geometric requirements, so it did not suggest that any improvements were required there at this point. And it did not qualify for a traffic signal or any kind of other signalization other than the stop sign that is there now. That was the other interest at the planning commission's.
The second one is 5064, 513, and 514, which all relate to road improvements, being curb, sidewalk widening, and so on. In discussing it with the planning commission and also with the engineer, what is, excuse me, being proposed is to create a consistent width of where Keystone Drive width is now, extending that same width to the end of our property. So there's a minor widening. It's 30 feet up at the intersection, and for the most part, pretty far down Keystone. But then we're going to widen it to the 30 feet.
Pretty much where it bends there,
Yeah.
it gets narrow. And then it gets wide again as you're going into Hilltown Township. So I'm trying to alleviate that and widen that
And
section.
then there's going to be an overlay of the road also, correct, Steve?
Correct. And state road is what it is, it's wider than our ordinance requires. No improvements.
And it's
But-
PennDOT and all kinds
So
of
the only road
stuff.
improvements that's really a full waiver is curb and sidewalk.
Or has there been, or will you be discussing with the applicant about being?
If you're, yes, with your direction, we'll discuss contribution.
The next one is 5151A, which is street trees. The majority along 152 is wooded. The area along Keystone Drive, number one, it's a nice open view into the property and down to the creek, but also there's a steep embankment off there, so to plant the trees would be very difficult without, basically trying to flatten them out, because we're talking probably a 3 or 4 to 1 slope going down off of Keystone into this property, so to plant the street trees would be a little bit difficult, and whether they'd actually take and maintain themselves would be questionable. 515.2, parking lot landscaping. Your ordinance calls, I believe, for 35% of shading of parking lots, and we're at 32.1. We've planted trees wherever we possibly have a place to plant trees along the parking and the driveways, and we just can't come up to that 35%. And part of the issue is we do have PP&L. PP&L's high tension line crosses over our new driveway. And within that area, we can't plant any trees. So we're losing some area that we can't plant because of PP&L.
The planning commission was comfortable that they did as much landscaping as was practical.
Well, 35, 31 to 35.
Yeah,
It's pretty close.
negligible.
Yeah, it's just, there was no place where we could find to plant any more trees. At least to serve for the landscaping of the parking areas. 515.8 is afforestation. We're asking for a waiver from that because it's the intent of the non-wooded areas. Mr. Carucci is hoping to keep them somewhat agricultural and use those for basically his own use and for agricultural purposes. So we didn't want to plant any more and remove the agricultural, the potential of agricultural use there. From the stormwater management ordinance, 308G4 and N4, it's concerning the slopes of the basin slopes and so on. We are proposing them at 3 to 1. The ordinance calls for 4 to 1, and that's basically to keep the size of the basin down. We're limited because we have existing improvements in the green area, and then we have the floodplain, so we have to put this basin someplace in there. So in order to oversize the basin like we have and so on, we went to 3 to 1. So we have produced a statement that says that the soils and so on and the compaction of the berm will hold at the 3 to 1 slope and so on. And stormwater management ordinance 308N4 regarding the fencing of the basin. Because the basin is designed for NPDS and storage of the 2-year storm and everything for discharge into a filtration system, the depth of it is more than your ordinance calls for. And it says that the storage depths are more than 2 and 3 feet, I believe, on the 2 different stories.
Yeah, 2 feet on the
And then
10
it has to be fenced.
3 on 100.
Well, we'd like a waiver of the fencing if at all possible, number one, for maintenance purposes, and also because it's well confined within the site itself, so it's not near public access that would cause a safety hazard, which is normally why when you have water and stuff, we try to fence it to keep little kiddies and stuff like that out. So, since it's all contained pretty far away from any public access, we're asking for a waiver of the fencing.
And I mean, historically, most of our fence basins are in residential neighborhoods. Right. I can't recall any of the commercial sites that we did have fencing. The increased depth is really a nominal amount, probably a few inches on each of the storms, and only at the outlet structure, the deepest part of the basin. So it's not, just so you understand, it's not that there's 10 feet of water in this basin. It's just slightly above the thresholds that we have established in the ordinance.
And that's all the waivers I have. I believe that's what the paper is.
Yep.
Do you have any recommendations with regard to the waivers?
No, with the caveats that we talked about, I'm comfortable with the waivers that were requested, with the only one being the contributions for the curb and sidewalk improvements.
Do we want any of the tree placement, street trees, or parking lot landscaping trees to go anywhere else in the township, or we just have to just let them go?
That's for the board. I don't know if we have
I don't.
Can't imagine, yeah.
I'm comfortable with the way
I
it's.
don't know that we have a current need
No.
anywhere else.
I would say this, so let me just back up, because I've been spending a little bit of time in the park. There are some trees that we planted in the park here a couple years ago that have died and haven't been taken. Would it be possible to get a few trees that would have been planted on this site through the waiver here that they're asking for, and maybe get them and replace, incorporate them into our park where the ones that died that we planted? Is that a possibility to do that, or would that not be?
We could discuss that.
Okay. If you
Yeah.
could discuss that, I would feel comfortable if we did that.
So,
That way, they would be providing the trees, they just would go on their property, and we have I think there's probably 5 or 6 of us.
That many, I saw 4, I didn't.
4, okay, well, maybe it was just 4. But I know that we have some that died that we planted that, hey, this might be an opportunity to fix it and accommodate this project.
Craig, you and Steve can get that out.
The fee in lieu, I think, should be worked out.
Yes.
The overall plan and the concept and the timeframe, I support with what he's doing here.
What's your recommendation, Steve?
I recommend a conditional final, preliminary final approval with these items we discussed tonight.
But you would make a recommendation for Mary to prepare a resolution?
Yeah.
That's right.
I have a motion.
I'll make that motion, but ask Mary to prepare a resolution for this plan.
And I'll second.
Okay, good second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
So
you.
recommended. Thank you very much.
Look that up, that's the number we're gonna have, thanks.
Thank you very much.
I think, well, not on the agenda, but just to make note, we do have the Penn Foundation plan. Remember last year, they added that parking lot?
Yes.
It was an amendment to their prior final plan, and one of the conditions was that they'd re-record the plan. Well, the project's essentially done now. We got the Mylars to be signed, so they're here tonight for after the meeting. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
I have no questions.
I'll make a motion to approve Steve's report.
All right, I'll second it.
Okay, then we're, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Solicitor's report. Lizette?
At the last meeting, you reviewed land development application for the Dominus Corporation for up in the Raider subdivision, what's that called, Annalee?
Annalee,
Right.
yes.
I prepared a resolution consistent with your direction. The applicant has reviewed it and he made certain changes, and they introductory. Steve and Greg have also reviewed it. So if you are inclined to adopt the resolution tonight, the next resolution number is 2019-11. 12, sorry. And I'd be looking for a motion to adopt resolution 2019-12.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay,
Go ahead.
second.
Got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Likewise, Fresco came in with a minor, what I'll call lot line change with the church next door. And you had authorized preparation of an approval resolution that's been reviewed by Fresco's attorney. I believe it's been circulated to the church as well. It has been reviewed by Greg and Steve, and if you're inclined, you could adopt it by making a motion to adopt resolution 2019-13.
So moved. Second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
And there was also a Palzer and Godshall minor subdivision plan, which also I was directed to prepare an approval resolution. That approval resolution's been reviewed and is before you for consideration tonight. If you would like to adopt it, I think we're up to 2019-14.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
And then finally,
Could I just interrupt you for a second?
Go ahead.
Just to make note of that one, we do have a planning module information came in on that, but it's not the kind that requires a resolution. We'll just process that. It's one more item we have
That's for the Pulsar.
for Paulson.
Yeah, okay.
and then the last application was another minor subdivision for the Select Properties Vernacular and the Young Tract. And that has been drafted, reviewed by the applicant and their attorney, reviewed by Greg and Steve. And if you would like to adopt it, I think we're up to 2019-15.
Correct.
So moved.
All right. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And to piggyback on that one, we also have a planning module submission for the Young Tract. This is similar to the Gavin subdivision where it has the drip system, so I will need a motion for a resolution, approval resolution for the planning module and then for preparation of the O&M agreement.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
That's 2019-16,
Correct.
will be the planning module.
Okay, is there anything else?
I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman, unless you have questions for me.
Excuse me, Solicitor, if I may, with respect to the resolution, first of all, we thank you for approving the resolution.
Sir, excuse me, could you state your name?
Yes, my name is Frank Bartle. I represent Select on behalf of,
Okay.
I'm here on behalf of the
Thank
applicant.
you.
And I apologize for interrupting, but in the title of your resolution, unfortunately, I didn't catch this until tonight. It says conditional preliminary approval. This is actually a minor subdivision, and that should be,
I'm not gonna change it because we only have one approval for minor subdivisions. You know, they'll sign the plans, everything will be fine.
and so it'll be fine.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mary. I just want to make that clear because, as you know, we have a settlement date coming up.
You do, and I don't like scratch outs on formal resolutions, so we'll just let it go.
We'll be guided by that. I just want to bring that to your attention. And then finally, there was also a deferral that was mentioned in the resolution. We would respectfully ask for that deferral as well.
What he's talking about is at the last meeting, when they came in front of you, they wanted the plan to be recorded before they actually installed the stormwater management facilities and the things that they would need to install if they were going to proceed as if this property was going to be developed with a single-family residence. Since they do not expect the property to be developed with a single-family residence, they would like to do a deferral of improvements as we've done on some other projects, allowing them to execute and record a declaration of covenants listing the improvements that would be anticipated if it develops as a single-family dwelling. And that would take your approval to authorize me to prepare that declaration and have them sign it. You don't need to make a motion, but you need to know about it. And if you have any objection, let me know.
And it'll be so noted in the minutes.
Did you have any input on that, Steve?
No.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anything else, Steve?
No, not on,
Is there a motion for
What,
approval?
yeah, hold on a second. There was a last one, resolution for 2019-16, am I correct?
right.
15.
No.
15 was for the plan, 16 was for the planning module.
Planning module, okay, I just want to make a note of that, thank you.
I know our meetings aren't real exciting, Frank, but it's better than driving home in a monsoon. I guess.
Okay, thank you, Murray. I make a motion to approve Mary's report.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Township manager report, Mr. Lippincott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item and only item is the treasurer's report and payment of the bills. I'll go over the treasurer's report ending June 30th, 2019. The general fund has $798,211.25. Highway aid, $266,861.41. Open space, $981,061.24. The park fund, $11,643.30. The equipment fund, $17,703.36. Highway capital, $127.69. Street light, $35,793.20. The reserve funds, the general fund reserve, $344,710.78. Open space manager field, $50,599. Sewage maintenance fund, $171,848.45. Stormwater, $6,218.45, and the escrow funds, $288,831. You also have a list of all this.
Okay, gentlemen, you have any questions on the report?
I've done. I make a motion to approve, all subject to audit.
I'll second it.
Okay. No, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Old business. Anyone have any old business?
No.
I have none at this time.
Okay. New business?
Yes. I want to bring up the issue that we've been having with Airbnbs. And I would like to direct Mary to draft a resolution for us to look at. Because we've had some issues with some areas of the township with cars parking on the streets. A lot of people being there, and this particular place being rented out every weekend. And I've had some calls from concerned residents on Tower Road.
I have some.
So I think we need to look at doing what some other townships have done. I know there's been some ordinance, Greg, you sent us some ordinance, Lower Mayfield did?
Correct.
So I'd like Mary to draft something for us to look at so that we can prepare an ordinance to try to protect the current residents of the township that are being affected by this behavior. I should say, sometimes nuisance.
So you put that in a motion?
I'm putting it in a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
The other thing I would like to also do is I would like to consider having Mary draft an ordinance to place no parking signs on Tower Road. If we need to do an ordinance, we need to do that. Because the road is not wide enough for cars to be parked up there, and if there are cars parked on Tower Road, it's difficult for traffic to pass both ways. Since Tower Road is a one way in and no way out, you gotta come back down. There's no other entrance out of there.
So, are you saying both sides of the road there? you are
Yes,
specifying?
yes.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just,
No
I wanted,
I thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that, but no parking on Tower Road. Sorry, can you hear me, David? No parking on Tower Road,
Either
Either
direction
direction.
from Ridge Valley to the end.
to the end,
So I'll second that motion.
okay?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anything else?
I have nothing else on a new business.
I have not.
Public comment, please say your name and
Oh, Pennridge Senior
Oh,
Center?
yes, yes.
Pennridge
Pennridge
Senior
Community Center, Pennridge Community Center. Don?
Pennridge Community Center has just gone through a huge renovation because of the flooding they had. And they have requested some money earlier than what we usually give them in the beginning of the years, or at the end of the year. So I am more than in favor of giving them the money early.
Are you?
your opinion?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
I would agree with that. So we can ask the township manager to release those funds.
You usually do $2,500 a year. Is that what you would like to do?
Right?
I'm in favor of that, yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to, do we need a motion for that because it's a payment?
Yep,
Yes.
you
All right,
do.
I'll make a motion to give that money to the senior, to the community center.
And I'll
Second.
second it. or-
2 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Anything else?
Not for me.
No,
That's
I
it.
have not.
Are we- Okay, we're gonna open up for public comment. Now, Dave.
Just a reminder, we actually, our silent auction, I just forgot to mention in our Park and Rec meet, that there's all our silent auction goodies that we're gonna be auctioning off in September Fest. We were fortunate to be able to send something out to all the donors, businesses and stuff like that. So we have a whole display full, which is awesome. Did you do this? She did an awesome job. Suzanne did a great job displaying it all up there. So you can go and see if you would like to see what's some of the displays coming up for September Fest. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Any other comments? If not, seeing none, accept the proposal for closing the meeting.
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
All right, I'll second it.
Move to second, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.